We are having a case of the Mondays down here on day 6 of the Hurley Pro and the Swatch Women's Pro as we wait for the official call to see if we'll be getting underway for stop number 8 for the men, stop number 7 for the women of the Samsung Galaxy Championship Tour. Welcome to Dawn Patrol. I'm Joe Turpel, alongside former world champ Martin Potter.
Morning, Joe.
Potts, how was your surf yesterday?
Yeah, good.
Nice. And a man who's finaled in every stop on the Triple Crown, Ross Williams.
Hey.
You look rested.
Case of the Mondays. We're doing good down here, Joe. We're feeling excited.
Not a bad case. Yeah, this is a good place to be. Coming up on the show, we're going to talk about a lot of exciting stuff, especially the biggest news here around the world, the biggest reaction to a 4.17 we've ever had. We're going to break it down on this first segment. We'll dive into the top 10 rankings for the men and the women to see who's going to be the world champ at the end of the year. We'll also go into the standings and the matchups, which could be happening today if today is finals day, and we'll get the Surfline Forecast to see if we will get underway with Pete Mel on the last segments. Well, boys, this has been really exciting the last couple of days. We had more than 10,500 comments on the WSL Instagram reacting to Kelly's 4.17.
Yep.
Potts, were you surprised by that?
Not at all. I mean, Kelly creates drama, and that was, drama-filled, that wave. I mean, it was second wave of the heat. Nick was still yet to catch a wave. We hadn't seen big scores on the left-handers through this entire event, but to me, that was some of that freakish stuff that Kelly always does. I mean, yes, it was an incomplete ride, but it was filled with drama, and only he could sort of make that happen, right, Ross?
And it always amazes, or never ceases to amaze me how Kelly puts so much more effort than your normal surfer on tour. It was kind of a freakish thing how the wind grabbed his board and fluttered it, but for him to react that way and just grab that board and put it back under his feet, that's the Kelly that we know and love.
Well, an interesting 4.17. This was at the start of the matchup. The crowd went absolutely crazy, and most people on the beach wanted this to be a 10-point ride. Potts, why didn't get a perfect number on this one?
Well, had he landed on his feet, obviously that would have been a 10, but because of the fact that he landed on his stomach, got back up on his feet, that was an incomplete ride. It's just part of the judging criteria. It's part of how it works, and obviously the judges have been very critical with finishing your waves off, finishing your maneuvers off, riding out of that white water at the end of your wave. So I wasn't surprised that it was a low score, but best 4.1 I've ever seen, that's for sure.
Well, it was spectacular. There's no two ways about it, Joe. So there's a lot of things to talk about here, but the biggest thing for me is Kelly moves the needle more than anyone. He could do so many different things in a heat, and it's just going to draw a lot of attention. And that's because he has that freakish ability to make a wave exciting, even when he kind of messes a wave up. Everyone on the beach knew instantly it wasn't going to be a keeper. It wasn't going to turn the heat and give him that favor over McFanning. But it was still crazy and weird, and Kelly's known to do that kind of stuff, throughout his whole career. The other kind of story for me in the heat was his 8.5. He messed that wave up a little bit too. That had potential of being a 9.5, and he messed it up just a little bit. So Kelly, again, another little blunder for that world title that everyone was waiting for him to kind of take control of this year.
It's been really fun to hear all these amazing reactions from both of you, from basically the whole world, and we were lucky enough to get the reaction from the man himself. Kelly met up with Ross at 10:30 p.m. last night. Let's check this out.
Kelly, here he goes again.
Checking out another left-hand option. Off the bottom, going for a flyaway, backside air reversal, land prone and get back up.
When I did it, I just felt like I screwed up a normal air reverse. I didn't realize I got so inverted, and the board sort of did all of what it did, and I didn't realize I was so detached from the board.
Yeah.
I thought it was right there under my feet. As I grabbed and held on, my knees smashed into both sort of rails right ahead of the deck pad, and completely, almost blew the rails out of both sides of the board and almost broke the board in half.
Yeah.
But then I realized I landed hard and perfectly on a plane, and I just kind of got back off my knees onto my feet. And I realized I was in the white water, and I go, might almost look like I didn't land like that, you know? In my head, I was just kind of laughing about that I was even still on the wave, and then I landed so square on the board in some way. Then I was just kind of goofing around, and then I just did the 360, and I almost fell there. I kind of dug my nose, and then I did a turn that was I was a little too weighted forward, and I got a little stuck, but then I did a sort of a nice clean finishing turn.
You've got to remember, this is the top 34 in the world. This is the best surfers in the world, and they have to complete these manoeuvres. Now, if you do the most amazing aerial in the world, or the world's ever seen, I'm not saying that one is, and you land on your belly, it's an incomplete manoeuvre. Everyone has to understand it's an incomplete manoeuvre. It's worth nothing. And the surfers know all that. There's no dissension amongst the athletes about that score, guaranteed. I understand where people are so excited and amazed and feel a little bit let down because it was an amazing spectacle.
In small waves, you know, it's all about precision. It's all about like greasing things, like making them as smooth as possible, flowing between things without a glitch. You know, I'm the competitor. I'm the one who has to wear the brunt of that being a good or a bad score. And I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah.
I don't know why so many people are, to be honest with you.
Let's take a look.
Taking off, I'm a little behind, so I'm trying to catch up. I'm eyeing it right there, and then I still look at it and go, how did the board do that?
That happened in 2 seconds or less.
Yeah. All I really remember was hitting my knees really hard, both my knees at the same time, and holding onto my board, and I was like, wow, I can't believe my board's planing, and I just went, I'm back up, and I was like, well, there's so much white water around me, it might look like I didn't even ever fall.
How does it look? You don't know how it looks when you're doing it.
I saw that his board, his knees went through either side of his rails, and then it pushed him down further, so he was so close, and if he'd landed on his feet, oh my goodness, it's an obvious. You know, you don't see that thing every day of the week, if at all, and the score would have been no problem. There's a 10-point ride.
Great reaction from head judge. We thank Richie Porta for his time to explain that moment because he had so many reactions coming to him. We pulled him aside just to get his analysis. Going to the prone position, that's a fall, incomplete maneuver, an easy 4.17 for them to put down on paper.
Yeah, you know, obviously he said had he pulled that off, had he landed on his feet, we're looking at a 10-point ride. But, you know, even with all of that, what Richie explained, I think it was still a dynamic ride. I mean, the beach absolutely lit up. Mick Fanning's heart sunk.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of those moments. But when the score was called out, he was back to work as usual.
And Richie's right. You know, at the end of the day, all the professional surfers that are on tour, they're the biggest critics out there. And they all said, you know, it wasn't a wave that was going to change the heat. But nonetheless, it's super fun to talk about. And I think that's the lesson here, is when Kelly does stuff like that, you know, and we're so used to him doing crazy stuff. It just, all that conversation, the fact that we got some airtime on mainstream media, that's cool. And it just brings our sport out there in the limelight.
I think what might have worried people is when Kelly said maybe he wouldn't go to Europe after losing to Fanning because he could be out of the world title race. No one wants to see Kelly not show up to France and Portugal. We'll still wait to see if he does end up going to the European leg, but it was great insight on the 417 as Mick Fanning got to move on throughout the contest. I think Ross is going to have to run to the booth soon to join Chris for another segment as we get the official call and say a big good morning to Rosie Hodge with our commissioner, Kieran Perrow.
Thanks so much, boys. Yeah, good morning, Kieran. You've obviously assessed the conditions. You've had a little surf this morning. Will we get competition underway?
This morning there's still some swell left over, which we're expecting, but that south wind's already starting to move in. So it's going to kind of blow onshore from the south direction, which is not great for here. It really kind of ruins the lineup. And so we won't be running anything today. And we'll come back tomorrow. We're still expecting that swell to actually drop over the next few days, and watching a good-looking swell for the end of the week, Thursday into Friday. But today might even get some rain, so yeah, it's a day off.
Well, we're going to have a look at the drama that's unfolded with both the men's and the women's top 10 at the Hurley Lowers Pro and the Women's Swatch Pro. Stay with us.
Good morning, and thank you for watching Dawn Patrol here at the Hurley Pro and the Swatch Women's Pro at the most rippable wave in the world, a place called Lowers in San Clemente, California. Just joining us, we already made the official call. Karen Pro wants to wait for better surf later on in this waiting period, but it still looks pretty fun for us to get out there.
It does.
As we say good morning to Potts once again and welcoming Strider Wazalewski.
Happening, boys.
The
Good to be here.
Former Malibu Invitational Legends champ.
Boom.
Little priority blunder this year.
Yeah,
He's kind of radical.
Gentleman's roll.
Yeah.
Gentleman rules backfired.
Once a competitor, always a competitor. It always stays heated when we think about the top 10 picture in this world title race. It's getting really interesting and exciting. A couple guys out of the top 5 wounded the other day. One of the interesting matchups, Potts, that you were a little grumpy about watching was the delayed start with Owen Wright and Nat Young. It ended up costing Owen Wright a crucial loss.
Well, it did, and there was 2 set waves that moved through. Normally, if there's no waves come through, obviously they get the heat reset, get that extra 10 minutes back. But because they were pushed themselves out of position, there was no heat restart. 2 of the best sets went through unridden, and hence Owen only just coming out of that heat with 1 wave, a 6 in his scoreline. I spoke to Nat yesterday, and he said, it was the case of 2 stubborn guys just didn't want to give up that inside position.
Yeah, they knew that they wanted to start out strong with a big 8-point ride or something like that, and they didn't want to give up that zone. It was kind of hard to tell whether they were actually out of position or that thing swung wide, too. And I know Owen wanted to talk about a restart. There was all this conversation, obviously, after. When you lose, you lose. He's such a fiery competitor, but, you can't win them all, and that's the way that one went.
One man who kind of dictates the start of heats is Adriano de Souza. He always demands that first wave. Almost feels like he invented that sometimes. As we look at his form, he's still moving on into the quarterfinals against Wiggly Dantes. Potts, I want to know from you, is he doing world #1 surfing at this stage of the year?
Well, I don't think so. I think he's got to crank it up. You look at all the other guys, the score lines they've been dropping, Mick Fanning, Joel, Philippe Toledo. These guys have been dropping some massive scores. He's just been winning his heat, so in saying that, he's in a good position. He hasn't showed his best surfing yet, but he's in the quarters.
What a clash. Fanning, Slater. What was the difference with Mick winning this heat, Strider?
Well, obviously, Mick just went to town. He's so good on the face, and Slater was a little on his heels, so to speak. You can see the timing of Mick Fanning, and then you see Slater, he's catching up the whole time, and I don't understand, what it was. For me, I honestly thought it was the board he rode. I felt he needed a little more foam in there, and maybe he would have been out in front of those, the timing and right on the button. And that, I think, was the difference.
This was the interesting heat. Owen Wright, Nat Young out of position to start. They told them they would not get a restart. So the officials were letting them know Owen's first wave was taken at the 3-minute mark.
Now, the judges, the head judge, the beach commentary let them know right before that restart, saying you guys are not going to get a restart. They both continued to sit there. For me, once that realised there's no heat restart, get your butt into the lineup, start surfing. You're not going to win a heat without catching waves.
Well, when you're sitting there on this, it says number 3 in the world, you want to get it started.
Wow. That's right.
Owen Wright, obviously he's upset for a reason because he's sitting there at such a high point on the ratings. He's looking good to jump in there. Right now that thing is so tight. It's such a fun, view of the top 10. I can't wait to see this thing.
So true. Big one. Owen out. Julian out of that top 5 picture. Kelly out, number 6 in the world. We were watching him as he needed a win situation at stop number 8 of the season. Now as we check out the Jeep leaderboard and the feelings from the women's side, Courtney Conlog came into this event feeling strong. Didn't really seem like she had any pressure, but she went down to Lakey Peterson.
Yeah, she did. Surfing really good in the opening rounds, just really stamping her authority. She still surfed good, but she came up against Lakey, who dropped a big score, 9+ on the opening one. I think wave selection came down to it, and obviously Courtney came up short.
I really think what you just touched on was the key point. She surfed really good in the beginning, but in that heat, she didn't have the same form.
Yep.
Moving on, this was, Carissa Moore coming after Tyler Wright, got a 9 points, an excellent score right in the beginning of the heat, but for her to fight back, mental space, and just have the poise to know that she could do what she needed, it was unbelievable to see her stay comfortable, stay poised, stay back, and just unleash on a couple of waves and get what she needed to back it up.
To come back from a 9.93, there's only one girl that can do it, and that's her right there.
This is Courtney reacting to losing
Yeah, it
world
just
number
didn't go
1.
my way, but I'm going to hold my head high, and I have still 3 events left. And just learn from my mistakes out there and just go check out, see what I did wrong and improve from it, so I'm ready for the next contest.
Courtney managing that pressure in front of the camera there, but she did stick around to talk to the judges right after that moment to see what they were looking at in that matchup as we check out the Jeep leaderboard on the rankings. Remember, the shaded ones are out with adjusted numbers. We lost world number 1, world number 3 out of the contest. Bait Dog will have a battle with Lakey Peterson as this one continues. Some really great matchups for the Swatch Women's Pro later on in the week. We'll take a quick break here on Dawn Patrol. Coming up next, more action up in the booth with Cote and Ross Williams.
Wow, what an incredible storyline that we heard all about yesterday. And guess what, Ross? Other stuff happened beyond Kelly Slater's recovery from that backside air attempt. Chris Cote here with Ross Williams, and of course the talk of the town seems like it's always about Kelly Slater, but the real talk is the world title race, and that heat that Kelly had against Mick Fanning, that was going to be a huge heat for Mick. And the fact is, he made it out of that heat. He's already out there right now, and it shows you his intent to get that yellow jersey. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, laser sharp focus for Mick Fanning and methodical. He just goes through his routine. He doesn't break it ever, and so it's very normal for Mick to be down here at dark. And I know, Chris, you're pretty excited about these matchups. A lot of yin and yang here. A pretty good mix of some dark horses still in there, and then the favorites.
Yeah, this is going to be an insane quarterfinal run, and it's fitting because so far this year at the Hurley Pro, it has been a wild and woolly event. I mean, you could never have scripted what's gone down already. These quarterfinals, I think, more of the same. For me, that Philippe Parco heat. So, I mean, Philippe Toledo, coming into this event, you would have to say he's the favorite, especially now the waves have dropped a little bit. Parco was a name that nobody was really even talking about before this contest, but we've seen what he's done out there, the power game. Parco's loose, he's fast, and to me, he's the guy to beat right now.
Which is weird because he's kind of suffering from a stiff neck, and then Joel's been surfing maybe the best we've seen him all year, so beware of the injured, I guess. But, we just saw the U.S. Open finish last night in tennis, and I love how when brackets start to really shape down to the quarters, you can see the top half and the lower half of the draw, and we have Felipe hovering up on the top, Mick Fanning down on the bottom. Wouldn't that be cool to see those dudes match up in the final, because you get that progressive surfing kind of matching up with the rail game? That'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, all of our top Jeep rankings leaders right now still in the game, so an exciting quarterfinals lined up on the men's side. Now let's talk women's. huge heat yesterday. Courtney Conlog went in with the yellow jersey. Lakey Peterson, she took her down in a really awesome heat to watch. Now we got Bianca Badencock, Lakey Peterson, and of course Carissa Moore, who is now going to get that yellow jersey and the Jeep Rankings lead.
Looking at it right there, you'd think, oh, Lakey has been on fire, so you'd think she might get past that heat there in the semis, and Carissa Moore, now that she's got the yellow jersey, she's got to be feeling inspired.
Yeah, well, we will have those matchups coming up later this week, and don't go anywhere because we're going to give you the rundown of the waves we're going to expect this week at the Hurley Pro. Stick around.
Lower Trestles here for the competition of the Hurley Lowers Pro. It's probably the most perfect place for a competition that's maneuver based. This place has just got this perfect peak of these cobblestone rocks that go out here and formed like these really long sweeping rights. Gives you section after section down the line, or gives you a perfect tapered wall to do any kind of maneuvers. It's just so much fun, and I normally try and sit just out from the groms and try and pull rank on the grommets on the inside.
Thank you, Josh Kerr, and your version of the GoPro breakdown as we come back to Dawn Patrol early in the morning. If you're just joining us, the contest has been called off, as we now say big good morning to Pete Mell joining us on the desk.
Good morning, Potts. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, everyone.
Grew up on the floors of Freeline Surf Shop. Did you ever put an honest day in at the shop, or were you allowed to leave when the surf was good?
Several, and the store's still there, and it's still kicking.
Epic. Thinking about the waves that we have today, we know it's off. What was the real big reason why you knew we were going to be off today?
Well, ultimately it's going to be the wind. I mean, we've got a weakening swell. We still have that southern hemi coming underneath New Zealand. It's there, but it's slow and it's weak. You know, again, there's some head-high waves when they come, and it's actually looked pretty good when we first got here. We had kind of that easterly breeze. You can see that long interval still, you know, but as that swell matured, we saw some pulses still here and there, but ultimately it is weakened up. The big picture is the south wind. I mean, it was forecast, you know, Kevin Wallace from Surfline said that we were going to see a lot of that south wind start to pick up today. This morning we came down here, it was offshore. We're like, wait, what are you talking about? But sure enough, as we speak right now, you can feel that southwest breeze, and it's supposed to kick in and be around. We actually even have a chance of rain. But there is that swell right there later in the week. We're going to start to see that show up Wednesday, Thursday. So I think we're going to be all right. If you look at today, pretty stable at 3 to 4 feet throughout most of the day. You know, that's not really the issue. It's just that wind. I mean, we want to see smooth conditions, at least throughout the final, especially when we're going to climax at the end of the day. But there you go. Thursday comes up to 3 to 4 to 5 feet. So the similar size, but with that, it's going to have some energy. It's going to be a lot longer interval, which generally gives a little more power to the wave.
You can see Joel Parkinson, Carissa Moore just having a chat about the warm-up surf. They know they have the day off today. Joel Parkinson has been finding his form, the best form he's been in all season, but he does have Felipe Toledo. Potts, what do the conditions need to be for Felipe to win? What do they need to be for Parko to win, or is it going to make a difference here?
I think Felipe was hoping if it ran today with the south wind, right? It would have just been perfect for the aerial maneuvers. But Joel needs that sort of 3 to 4 foot solid swell. I mean, he's surfing insane. He's going to keep the board on the rail, but he can do those airs as well. So he's going to have to do something like that to mix it up with Felipe.
And I think, again, it's just about who's going to get those best waves. I mean, we're going to see similar size to what we saw the last time we ran. You know, that shoulder high to head high. It's going to be some sea heats are going to have a ton of waves, and some are going to be slow. So ultimately, you want to see that in that kind of a heat. You want to see full action.
So great matchups on paper. Also on the women's side, as that world title race is getting very exciting. Once again, we're off for the day, but enjoy the website, worldsurfleague.com, and start telling us who you think is going to win. And we'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning at 7:30 for Dawn Patrol. Take care.